So right now, when will this go out? This will be out in about 2 weeks, so I can talk about this. So I'm in the middle of writing a book about the whole GameStop saga, and right now I'm focused on a bit where I'm trying to talk about on the online on Reddit and in the Discord communities. There's been a lot of talk of bots in both contexts that you talked about, scripts and people being paid to post things or upvote things or downvote things. And it is a really interesting to hear you, who has worked on the moderation side of it, like help define the different types of ways in which these problems can manifest themselves.
Yeah.
I was curious as to what you thought was the most, like, what is the worst form? Is it, do you find that misinformation itself is do you think is something that needs to be clamped down on more, or do you see this inauthenticity as something that's worse? Because
So
yeah.
I wanted to, okay, so there's a number of questions here, and I'm going to unpack them. And first is that you were talking about GameStop and concern about bots and etc. And I just want to extend a word of caution, because I'm not personally familiar with, but the common trend I've seen is that normal people are extremely terrible at actually finding bots, because again, the point of trying not to be seen is that you are the fewer people will see you.
This is what makes it so fascinating.
And there was a quite prominent example of this actually in Britain back in 2019, which I think was reported in the BBC. And that was the Boris bots saga, that there were a lot of people who were in the comments under Prime Minister Boris Johnson's page making comments. And at first, it was brilliant Boris, I support Boris 100%, etc., all posting relatively the same thing. Eventually, they began posting broken pseudocode, and people were very concerned about this. I was urgently tasked with investigating this twice in like September and October. Eventually, it went to Facebook like 6 times in total. I stopped paying attention after the first 2. But the thing to realize is that these were not bots. These were actual people, actual Britons who were organically and coordinating with each other because they believed that it would be humorous to troll their political opponents by pretending to be badly disguised bots. And it would be funny if it wasn't so sad. Because, I mean, and of course, that's saga. Like the people concerned about bots were naturally concerned about Russia, Brexit, Redux, or etc. And but although their intentions were positive, ultimately it played more into Russia's hands by furthering the idea of Russian ubiquity and omnipotence, that Russia is everywhere and doing everything. And it also further divided the country because the political left was understandably concerned about this obvious bots supporting Boris Johnson. This is Russia again. Why isn't anyone paying attention? And the political right were concerned about, well, yeah, the left always thinks that we're bots and we're actual real people. They're just trying to delegitimize our actual voices and etc. And I realize that some people hearing this will probably want to go and pretend to be bots, but I'm asking you, please don't do that, because it will not make the mess any better. And I hope, but the point I'm making is that when people go look for bots, they often find things that they think are bots, but are often not actually bots, and they can't speak specifically about the GameStop saga case, but I want to be extended a word of caution there. The second thing, of course, is you were talking about misinformation and inauthenticity and which one is worse. And I think they're really, they're completely separate. They're all no problems, and they only worked on one of them. It's like if you ask a policeman who works on murder whether he thinks murder is rape or worse, he'll probably tell you that murder is worse. And if you ask a policeman who works on rape if he thinks rape is worse than murder, he'll probably tell you that rape is worse, or etc. I hope and so I mean, of course I have my biases and I'm trying to separate them out for this interview. But anyways, they're separate problems, and I think that I think that misinformation is probably much more widespread in the Western political contexts, however. And I think I think that I think that the focus often is on inauthenticity, in part because people are for lack of a better word, traumatized by 2016 in that they keep seeing the relics of the trauma everywhere. They're afraid of the same thing happening again. And I'm not,
seeing the ghosts of the Russian bots everywhere. Yeah.
and also because people can agree. Inauthenticity is something that people agree on. No one's saying that Russian bots should be allowed to do things. No one's saying that politicians should be able to get fake accounts to do things. And on the other hand, misinformation is very controversial in the United States, especially, but I'm sure also in Britain, because no one can, because something censorship. What should the prime minister be allowed to say? Should Facebook be allowed to take down a U.S. president, etc.? But I think that's and I want to be clear that I did not work on misinformation. I encountered it by happenstance sometimes, but it was not my focus or my area of expertise. But at least in the Western political context, it certainly appears to be more of a problem.
The thing that I picked up, the thing that I'm really looking at on the GameStop saga at the minute, at least anyway, is this thing where there are trackers that will track the mentions of specific stocks on the subreddits, and then there seems to be posts then related to whatever like the specific abbreviation is that keeps getting posted by users, but then there'll be seeming like spams of it, and they're picking up on things that aren't actually stock names, but they're just things that people are saying, like abbreviations of like either joke stock names, or people were talking about SSR, which is short selling requirement, as far as I'm aware. It's like a term to do with it. And then all of a sudden there was lots of people posting about how you have to buy that stock, even though it's not actually a stock. It's fascinating to try and figure out what's going on with that. But I'm really curious as to you said the Boris bots turned out to be people coordinating to post. So how do you figure that out? So if this comes across your desk, like what is it that you're looking at?
I'm not going to go into the details of that, and the real students would be disappointed. But the reason of that is quite simple, and that's that actual Russians are perfectly capable of watching your podcast as well, and actual people who want to do bad things, and they will tell you how I caught a criminal. Future criminals will know how to not get caught, and etc.
That's fair enough. I hadn't even thought of that. So why do you think governments have sort of been either reluctant or unable to make any kind of regulations on either inauthenticity, misinformation, or just over Facebook and social media firms generally? There seems to be like a reluctance to try and make any laws that would regulate it. Why do you think that is?
So I want to decompress this. So first of all, I think before misinformation, it's a thorny philosophical issue. Like many countries want to respect freedom of speech in some way or form, and telling a private company that that some specific amounts types of dialogue aren't permitted aren't permitted. It's something that most countries would do only in extraordinary circumstances. Like I believe Germany bans Holocaust denial, for instance, or something like that. But but most countries don't have bans of that sort. So I think it's the case in which really the laws and society and legislators and society aren't equipped for the new problems of the 21st century, really. But I am really not an expert on misinformation. And with inauthenticity, meanwhile, I'd say that there's several dimensions to it. The first is that it's hard for legislators to act on what they don't know, like I said. The second is that the bulk of the inauthenticity problems I saw and worked on were in foreign countries, in broadly the global south, in Latin America, in Africa, the Middle East, South Asia, Southeast Asia. but I saw very few of them in Europe and North America. And I mean, okay, I'm excluding Latin America from North America, but you know. And the reason I think of that, I think it's a combination of cultural dynamics. Like in other countries, I've caught politicians red-handed who are happily running fake accounts to support themselves, and I don't think I never found that in, say, a British politician, whether that's because it would never even occur to them, or because they are more afraid of the British press, or etc. I mean, same. But I think that after a certain point, when everyone starts committing bad behavior, then it becomes normalized. I mean, similar to other countries, we're going through a red light. Red lights have become more suggestions than actual laws to be obeyed. Because, I mean, if you go stop at the red light and then you see someone else zooming right through past it, you're wondering, like, hey, what's going on? It's not like I'm achieving anything effective here. They're driving straight, whether I'm doing it or not, or etc. And so I think that creates a dynamic, because of course countries are more concerned with their domestic priorities, and so they're unfortunately not as concerned about other nations such as Azerbaijan or Honduras or Albania or etc. And I hope this is making sense so far.
No, it is. It totally is. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, follow me on Twitter, or sign up to our mailing list. Thanks a lot to our sponsor, ExpressVPN, the #1 most trusted VPN. Get lightning fast connectivity with servers in 160 locations across 94 countries. Keep your browsing privacy safe with ExpressVPN and get a 35% discount on 12 months of ExpressVPN when you follow the link in the description below. Don't forget my book is now out and available to order on Amazon and on bookshop.org. That's Brexit, the Establishment Civil War. And most importantly, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.